Paul from, I'm going to blow this name, I'll tell you, Mississauga. How do I spell it? Say it?
That's close enough. I don't know how
Okay.
you say it.
Okay, fine. Why do WWE employees, or anyone, I guess, feed Dave Meltzer and Sean Ross Sapp and others information? Do they get paid? If not, what's the point of telling Dave what's planned for the months ahead? So, yeah, why do people talk to the inside dirt sheet writers?
Well, they say they talking to them, but do we know they're talking to them? No, because if at one time, if you were caught talking to one of them, they'd fire you because they didn't want that. I think it was more prevalent back in years gone by than it is now. And Meltzer, I've tried to read Meltzer. Meltzer is, I think he was before the major media guys. They would report the news. Meltzer not only reported the news or what he thought was going to be the news, but he put his opinion in it too. So when you read Meltzer, you're reading what he thinks is going to happen. It's like listening to the podcast. Hell, we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody's telling us. So we can say anything, whether it happens or not, we don't know. But Meltzer, he just found something that he could probably make a few dollars at, turned it into actually a pretty thriving business, because when he used to print, he would print those papers out, not on a printer. What is it called? Mimeograph? What's it called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just print them all out, and he'd do it by hand, and he would mail them all out. It's like $2 a week. So if he mailed out 500 copies of it, he'd make a pretty good little payday for the week.
But that, may be the case, obviously, but I know for a fact that Bruiser Brody used to talk to Dave Meltzer all the time.
Yep.
Terry Funk did. Eddie Gilbert, Paul Heyman, Steve Austin, I believe, does. I don't know if he'd ever admit it. Who else am I thinking of? Ric Flair did for a long time. Bret Hart did, later on in his career. Lots of people talk to Dave, and I'm using Dave as an example because he's the longest tenured, if I can say it that way. So what gravitates, quite frankly, a lot of the biggest stars in the industry to reveal information to outsiders for their newsletters? What's the motivation?
Well, to get covered positively. And see, Brody, he had a reason. This is Brody's reason. He wanted the Japanese promoters to read the paper, and they would read it. And when they'd hear, oh, they're offering him big money, well, that increased his standing with the Japanese promoters, because they're thinking that, well, if we don't get him here and pay him, that he'll just stay over there. And he was a big draw in Japan. So he made a living for a number of years just making Japan, like once every couple of months. He would come in for a week or a weekend, and then he'd leave. He'd be gone a month or 6 weeks, and then he'd come back in. So him and Stan Hansen basically used Japan as their primary source of income because of the dirt sheets, because Brody would tell his side of the story before the other dirt sheets said this, that, or the other. He'd give Meltzer the exclusive on it, and Eddie Gilbert would do it. And I've told the story about Eddie, right? He would say, he would call up Meltzer and tell him that, well, he talked to Vince McMahon. And then so Meltzer would write, hey, Vince, Eddie Gilbert could be going to WWE or WWF and be on the booking team.
I'll give you another one. He used to, a couple of different times, he was in contact for prolonged periods of time with Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff back in the 90s he used to talk to. He talked to everyone at the time. So why would Bill Watts talk to him? What's in it?
Well,
I mean, yeah.
Watts talked to him Watts hated him.
Oh, really?
I mean, oh, no, most of the guys in the business hated the writers because they would write contrary to what they was trying to put out. And a lot of them, like Bill Watts, I think, would call up and set the record straight. And he wouldn't tell anybody. that he had talked to him. But yeah, I mean, Meltzer was very influential in the wrestling business at one time till I think it went to his head. And now he's got a lot of people that nobody believes Meltzer anymore because now I heard up. He was on, I read that Tony Khan put him on payroll.
Yeah,
did you hear that?
Yeah, it's a theory that I don't believe, but
He could.
weirder things have happened.
He could just to get covered positively, because if he leaves it, Tony, to guys like me and you, well, what do we do to Tony and AEW? We just say what's wrong with it. We don't necessarily knock them so much. We're telling the truth, the way he needs to do this. And a lot of people write that, you know, we put over WWE, but we just trash AEW. And there's a reason for that, because there's so much difference between AEW programming and WWE programming. It's like night and day. And I don't think you need to be, you just look at it without being a wrestling fan and tell which one is the better show.